I mean, you look through a scope before, you only see this one thing.
That's right.
And he said he was able to detach from the scope. And when he detached, he could see the enemy for what it was really trying to do. Hey, what's up, guys? So glad y'all joined us again today for the Kingsman podcast. This is part of our men's ministry here at Resurrection Life. And, man, if you missed it last week, man, go back and listen. I have my good friend here, Micah Hickman, with us. And last week he shared his own personal testimony as a man, as a father, as a husband, of some struggles and different things. And we was talking about how even we've fallen into the trap of listening to all these podcasts and different things. And it just seems like we're real hyper-focused on the problems and the burdens, which are real. We're not denying any of those things, but that we wanted to get to, and we talked about it till we ended last time, is the solution, right? So we want to give you men some solutions to some things we're talking about, and there's no better place to look because the only real solution is Jesus, and he is the ultimate man, right? He's the perfect man, and so we look at Jesus, and so we want to talk about today, Michael, we talked about last time, we wanted to talk about the power of detachment, right? So basically, how do we change our focus? Our focus seems to be really on the problems. And I was just going to share a quick example, and then I'm going to let you talk on this subject. But I heard my man Jocko Willinks. I listen to him all the time.
Yes.
And he's so good, man. He was, as a Navy SEAL, he was talking about this idea of detachment. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking of it on a spiritual level. But when he spoke this was the illustration that speaks to all of us as men. And I think can really help us men who are at home. And like you said in your testimony, man, we're like, I mean, I'm coming home, I'm dealing with this. And then it gets to the point you're like, did I really sign up for this? I mean, what's the point?
Yeah.
So he was talking about, he was, as a Navy SEAL, they were on a little training mission, and they was just doing it on an oil rig. This was in the 90s. And as they're going through the training mission, they're supposed to recognize enemy fire and what their next move was. And the enemy began to fire, so they all, pulled up their guns, and they were in their sights. And he was sitting there waiting for a call from his commander or even his chief officer, and no one was making a command. And he was wondering why they didn't make a command, because he could see that the enemy was moving on the flanking on the right side.
Yeah.
And he looked around, and he knew it wasn't his place, because he said he was just new into the infantry, and he was like, he was holding that squadron line. He finally said, clear left, hold right. And he thought maybe he'd get in trouble for it, but everybody just began to call, clear left, hold right, clear left, hold right.
That's right.
And they moved. And, man, he thought he'd get in trouble for making this call. But later, after this, it was the right call. The leader actually came to him, the commander said, hey, Jocko, good call right there, man. So then he began to think, and he said, well, why did I make this call? And all these guys who had way more experience than my leader didn't make the call. And he said what it was is when he stepped back, everybody was still in their scope. He said, and because they were still in their scope, their field of vision was only like real hyper-focused, right?
Yes.
I mean, you look through a scope before, you only see this one thing.
That's right.
And he said he was able to detach from the scope. And when he detached, he could see the enemy for what it was really trying to do.
That's right.
And so he was able to step back and take a real clear decision and make the right decision. He was able to focus on the solution.
That's right.
Instead of just the enemy bearing down.
That's right.
So that was something I thought about. That speaks to me in my own life as a man, because, man, when you're dealing with all that, and the enemy's real and he's firing, but sometimes the enemy's doing it on purpose to get you focused on the weapons that are formed against us.
That's right.
Instead of our solution. And so I'm just throwing that out there back at you. On maybe some ideas you have. I was thinking about Jesus in the garden. Even Jesus had to step back as a human, get with the Father, for him to see a heavenly perspective, right? Instead of just that one little bitty perspective that comes from myself.
That one problem, because it's like when you're stuck in a rut. Right. If you ever go mud riding, or, back in Cleveland, Mississippi at Delta State, look, you went in farmers. That's right.
Don't fight Okra.
And dude, you would get stuck, and all you were worried about was getting out, because those farmers, they're going to come out and they're going to put they're going to shoot through your engine block.
No doubt in that Delta.
That's right. So you got to get out, but the problem is, where are you pulling from? Where are you pushing to? Because just because you got out,
Right.
if you cross the wrong way or you're angled to the wrong way, you end up in a rice field that's been flooded, and that's it for your truck anyways.
You're done.
You need a wrecker.
Right.
And so you got to see it. Well, when we're stuck in a rut, sometimes it's hard, and it's crazy you said perspective and detachment. One of the things I use in arguments with or disagreements sometimes at work with other adults, I take a piece of paper and I ball it up and I set it in between. Like if you and I, if I felt like sometimes if you were a person that didn't have the ability to separate us discussing a hard topic or me attacking you personally. Right. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll wad it up. I'm going to say, this is that situation. This is the work ethic or the paper you gave me, whatever. And I'll ball it up and I'll put it there. You are Remo. I am Micah. Okay. I have a problem with paper.
Right.
I don't have a problem with, and it seems, you're laughing. People laugh at me but what it does is.
No, it makes sense.
I am trying to take the perspective. I'm not attacking you.
Right.
We have a person. I'm going to attack the situation.
Right.
Okay. But if you never see that, and one of the things God gave me with the perspective, especially because I was struggling with it. I was like, man, I am tired of grinding.
Yeah.
I was going through a period where 2 years, I stepped away from coaching. What's my calling? What am I supposed to do? What is my purpose, God? I don't even know what I'm doing right now.
Yep.
I'm just working hard, right? That's what, some of you listen to motivational speakers.
Yeah.
Hey, rise and grind, right? I do love ET though, but so I'm doing that. I'm going. Well, I was building Legos with Seth. I love Legos. Seth was 4.
Right.
Okay. And Legos that my wife buys, they have directions because they're 3-in-1. Okay. So I'm reading the direction. My 4-year-old cannot read. He cannot read. Well, this is an in-depth thing.
Yeah.
And I'm mildly looking at my wife because he keeps trying to put peace. I'm looking at her like, why would you buy something so hard? Or what? But he's like, Dad, build it with me. I'm like, okay, dude. And I love Legos. They're so much fun.
Right.
Okay. Dude. So it comes to the part where it's this intricate ball with layers on layers and you got to connect it. And he keeps trying to grab it and say, Dad, this goes here. Dad, this goes here. I'm like, no, son, that didn't go there. Just wait, just a deadgum second. I got to build this to make sure that it's sturdy, the foundation is right. You got to put all the little pieces on this other piece before you can get to the real thing that everybody says, that makes him go, wow, this is cool, right? Okay. And I got so frustrated. I was like, all right, you know what? Because I'm like, I told him, I see the direction, son. I can read. I got them right here. That's not how it's supposed to. Dad, yes. You know what? You build it. But when it breaks and you're ready for me to build it the right way, you let me know. And I walked away, whatever. It took about 3. And dude, I'm telling you, I had to go in the garage because I could feel it. I started tearing a little bit. And it was like the Lord snapped at me. He was like, that is exactly how do you think I feel with you? And it was a thing where he was working on you. If I would stop trying to look at, I've got this, and just focus on, God, I know, Jeremiah 29, I know you have a plan for me, a plan for good and not for evil. And that's going to be my focus. I don't need to know. He didn't need to know the little details. He just needed to know how the designer created it. He has the instructions.
He's got it. That's right. Come on, man.
And I told my mom.
That's so good. That's so good.
Crazy.
You got just trust me. You got it figured out.
That's right.
Well, that's the way it is, man. With the Lord, and I think He wants us to realize if Jesus Himself had to do it and get His eyes on the Father, Father, I commend my spirit into Your hand. He still had His eyes on the Father even when He was on the cross, because He knew that no matter what was going to happen, He was working it all for good. I think about Joseph in the Old Testament, man. Joseph, he could have gave up in the pit. His own brothers threw him in there. He could have gave up in the prison. The thing was, he kept that perspective of, I just know He means evil for good.
That's right.
I don't understand it, but I know he does. And in the end, he realized the pit and the prison is actually what got him to the palace. And it's if we can keep our eyes on the Savior, if we can keep our eyes on the Father and understand that he's going to work it all for good. Because Jesus even said this on the cross. He said he endured the cross for the joy that was set before him.
That's right.
He wasn't looking at the cross. He wasn't looking at all the things that were coming against him, the hands that were slapping him, the spear in his side. He was looking at the joy that was before him, that somehow me getting on this cross and doing it, it's gonna bring joy. It's gonna bring joy to my Father, that there's a purpose in all of it.
That's right.
So if we can keep our eyes and maybe detach, and maybe if you're listening out there right now, this can maybe help you on, I know just what Michael talked about with his son, but even with me and my wife, you get in an argument, and I'm always using that verse, hey, it's better to be on the rooftops than be in the house with a contentious woman. But you know that verse. So we try to use that against her and be like, you're not supposed to be contending with me. But I think what it is God saying, hey, when that happens right there, don't get hyper-focused on the argument. Like you said with the piece of paper, don't get so focused on her attacking you. Get to the rooftop. Get your perspective right again. Detach. Just like Jocko said when he pulled back. Detach for a minute. Get your perspective from heaven and not just on what's going on. And then you can make a clear, right decision so that you follow the path that God has for your life, and everything's going to work all out for good. So that's the power of detachment, and I hope that helped you. We might continue on that. Who knows, man? We get together. We get going. Next time, we're going to build on that, and we're going to talk about the power of extreme ownership, another solution-based thing that we have to have. Just as Jesus was that man, he did those things. That's what made him solution-based, and that's what we want to be here with the Kingsman ministry. So make sure you tune in next time. Good to have you. Join us. Make sure you pass it on, share it with your friends, and we'll look forward to sharing some more with you next time. Have a great day. God bless.
Later.